Kind of like a catchy tune. I like it. Hey, this is Philip Shadler, your local real estate agent in Los Angeles, and let's talk about real estate. What is going on? It is a seller's market for sure. Buyers are having a very tough time finding properties or even finding the means to buy it, to purchase. And we are currently in what I would call a buyer shadow demand. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But first, I want to share something really quick with you, share my screen with you. And let's have a look at what we got here. So, first of all, here is the reason why sellers really don't have to sell. Americans are sitting on a tremendous amount of equity, and 68.1% have paid off their mortgage or have at least 50% equity. Mortgaged homes with greater than 50% equity is 29.4%. Mortgaged homes with less than 50% equity is 31.9%. And homes owned or property owners who own their home free and clear, 38.7%. This will really tell us, or this tells us that the sellers are in a position where if they would sell, they would give up a high equity and they would give up a low mortgage rate. And if they would sell, it wouldn't really make much sense unless they're leaving the state or they're moving out of the country. Because the traditional way of selling real estate or owning real estate and then gaining equity and using equity to buy a bigger place is not so much the case right now because prices are fairly high. And a lot of sellers actually are pricing their property a bit higher than they should maybe, but you know what, they can get away with it. Some get away with it, some don't. And what I mean by that is we're at the moment, we're monitoring a few condominiums, one in particular in Santa Monica for a 1031 exchange for one of my clients. And the property has been on the market for 58 days and it was listed at $2,050,000 and had two price drops in the last, I would say, 5 weeks, 50,000 each. So now it's down at 1.9500,000. And I did a CMA for that particular property, and my CMA came up with a range between 1.8.5 and 1.95. So 1,850,000 to 1,950,000. So that to me is not really a price reduction. It's just sellers are right now trying to get the most out of the market. You can't blame them because they know there is not much out there. What they have is a hot commodity. And so they're going high. And sometimes, like I said, they get away with it. Sometimes they don't. And your property might be on the market longer and might get stale if you go that route. However, it is in some cases, let's put it this way. If you go the high route, I would definitely recommend that your property needs to be a 10. From 1 out of 10, 10 being the best, it needs to be a 10. Turnkey, nothing needs to be done, move-in ready. Then you probably have the best chances to get a slightly higher price than market, possibly. But generally, I wouldn't recommend to go too much above market price because you get less bites, less activity. But at this particular time, if you go maybe 1, 2, 3% above, and like I said, your property's in top shape, you might get away with it. But let's look at some other interesting data that I think is fascinating to me, because the experts all said a crash would be coming. Real estate is still considered the best long-term investment, and I would definitely agree with that. So here's the thing. If you Google it, just Google the U.S. Housing Index from 1940 till now, you'll see a continuous up and down. It's an up and down motion, but it's a continuous upward motion. So long-term real estate investment, I think, is a great way to go. It's a great way to create general wealth as well, or it is a great tool for that. We went through this already, and months of supply of homes for sale still very low. As you can see, buyer's market was definitely 2010 after the crash. A lot of people gobbled up a lot of properties. This was definitely buyer's market. This is what's going on now. Seller's market, there is way less than 6 months supply. As a matter of fact, if you think about it this way, there are approximately 82 million single-family homes in existence in America. And that's single-family homes. And out of those single-family homes, there's 433,000 as of last week from Altus Research. There's 433-something thousand on the market, which is really not a lot. That doesn't include townhouses and condos. Now, if you include townhouses and condominiums and single family homes, all those properties in the US are approximately 149 million. And out of those 149 million, there is 1 million 0.04 on the market. This is very, very low. This is one of the reasons why the market stays up. It's the reason why the prices are holding. Now, another situation is here. This is interesting to me. The experts predicted last year in October last year, that the market would crash. And you saw it all over the place. You saw it on YouTube, 20% crash, 40% crash, all these headlines that weren't true. And I actually have a video on YouTube that I produced, I believe 9 months ago, where I said, the housing crash, where is it? I just didn't see a housing crash based on the data that I studied on a daily basis, because the demand is very high and the supply was very low. So for me, it was like economics 101, basic economics 101. However, there are other factors that come into play, like the inflation and the recession that was looming, and it's kind of here, it's not here, we don't know for sure. But here's the thing. Experts made such a dire prediction, Goldman Sachs, Moody Analytics, which I'm going to show you in the next slides, that a lot of Americans each December who thought prices would go down over the next 12 months, look at this, 2022, right here, 37% of Americans thought the prices would come down. I had buyers too last year that told me, I'm not going to buy right now. I was told not to buy. The market's going to crash. Anybody who buys right now is going to lose their shirt. I told them at that time I wouldn't bet on that. It's very possible that I didn't see a crash coming at all. I told them I don't see a crash coming. Actually, people argued with me on the YouTube channel in the comment section. Anyway, let's look at what these people have said to make such dire predictions, which is, during the fourth quarter of last year, many housing experts predicted home prices were going to crash this year. Here are a few of those forecasts. Jeremy Siegel, Russell E. Palmer, Professor Emeritus of Finance at the Wharton School of Business. I expect housing prices fall 10 to 50%, and the housing prices are accelerating on the downside. Mark Zandi, Chief Economist at Moody Analytics. Buckle in. Assuming rates remain near the current 6.5% and the economy skirts recession, then national house prices will fall almost 10% peak to through. Most of those declines will happen sooner rather than later, and house prices will fall 20% if there is a typical recession. Let's see what Goldman Sachs said at the same time. And this data was all compiled, I believe, last July 2022, and these reports came out in August, I believe. Goldman Sachs. Housing is already cooling in the US, according to July data that was reported last week. As interest rates climb steadily higher, Goldman Sachs Research G10 home price model suggests home prices will decline by around 5 to 10% from the peak of the in the US. Economists at Goldman Sachs Research say there are risks that housing markets could decline more than the model suggests. The bad news is that it rattled consumers' confidence. This is exactly what we saw here at this 37%. This makes perfect sense to me, because if you ask me, I always tell people, don't look at the clickbait YouTube videos, because you hear 20% crash, 40% crash, everything is going down. This is clickbait. Kudos to them if they make money with the clickbaits and they get more viewers, okay. But as a buyer and seller, I would not rely on that data, on those news, and I can see how easily people get spooked with that kind of stuff. So it's important to really go with concrete data. For example, Case-Shiller, CoreLogic, even Moody Analytics. In this case, they were not correct with the prediction, but I respect those companies because they do a lot of research, and it just shows you how difficult this market is to gauge, with what it's doing, because it's doing things it's never done before. Certainly during COVID, we saw that very, very clear. Now, one thing I want to talk about too really quickly is the shadow belief. Let's see what else. Oh, the good news is, let me finish this real quick. The good news, home prices never crashed. However, home prices didn't come crashing down and seem to be already rebounding, which is true. Look at this. So in February, we had started a rebound. So the market started rebounding. Prices started going up all across the country in February. From the minimal depreciation experienced over the last several months. In a report just released, Goldman Sachs explained The global housing market seems to be stabilizing faster than expected, despite months of rising mortgage rates, according to Goldman Sachs research. House prices are defying expectations and are rising in major economies such as the US. This is interesting to me. Again, I'm glad they were wrong, because I'm glad we didn't have a crash. Again, I didn't see a crash. I also didn't see foreclosures because people refinanced during COVID. They got a low mortgage rate. They got a high mortgage, even if they had a forbearance payment. The forbearance payment is usually when you stop paying a mortgage for a certain amount of time, let's say 6 months, but then at the end, it's a one lump sum is due. But the equity gain was almost equal to the lump sum that was due. So really, there was no foreclosures, right? There was no reason for the homeowners to throw the keys at the lender. But let's get back to the home buyer shadow demand. Home buyers right now, they would jump an opportunity immediately if inventory would increase, which would lower the prices of homes, or if rates would come down. So if they have any inkling of aid or help to purchase a home, they would jump on it. And the reason why we know this was very evident in California. So in California, the Senator Toni Atkins, I think was her name, created this program called Dream for All. And it's a very good program. The governor, for whatever reason, cut it down from 500 million to 300 million. And the program ran out of funding 2 weeks after its launch. So that would tell us that buyers really jumped. Buyers were like waiting in the shadows. They were waiting behind the lines. And the moment an opportunity comes up, they jumped on it. So approximately with 300 million, I think it was around 2,700 Californians who became homeowners through that program. And the way it works is with this program, it's an interesting program, because if in LA County, if you make less than $180,000 per year, and if you qualify, the state gives you a 20% down payment to purchase your primary residence. Now, here's the catch. It is to be enjoyed with caution, I would say, because when you sell the house, there are certain trigger points where you have to repay. You have to pay the 20% down payment back, plus you have to pay 20% of your earned equity. So some people might say, this is not such a great program. I would beg to differ, because if this is the only gateway to get into home ownership, then I think it's a good way to go. However, you must be very careful and frugal, because it is possible that, let's say 5 years, 10 years down the road, you might forget that you owe this money, or you might forget that you owe 20% of your equity. So now you have to give up. It's always hard to give up equity, because you work hard to keep your place in shape, and all of a sudden you have to give up 20% of your equity. That's quite a bit of money. However, if it gets you in a home ownership, then I think it's a good way to go. It's just, I think what CalHFA, the California Housing Finance Administration, would be wise to do is to send out to those applicants who got the money, to send out a reminder, I don't know, every 2 years, and say, hey, based on the current market value, if you were to sell your house today, you would owe us this and this much money. So you get a constant reminder, and you won't forget. And I'm sure most people won't forget, but there might be some that do. And then it's a big shock when that comes in, because there are a few triggers. One is obviously if you sell the property. Another one is if you refinance the property, you have to pay that money back, and any title change. So if you change title, or even I'm not sure if you add something to title, but title changes may also trigger a repayment to the state. But anyway, it's one way to get into a home ownership. Other than that, I would say with the way the market is rebounding, what I would predict for maybe not this year, but by mid next year, or maybe by end of next year, we might see double-digit equity gains in home ownership across the country, almost across the country. I mean, again, real estate is regional, but I would almost believe that is going to be the case. Anyway, if you're interested in a free home evaluation, I'd be glad to sit down with you and meet with you and discuss a strategy plan on how to maximize to get the most money for your property in the shortest amount of time, and really get your property in sparkling conditions so that you can maximize and pull out your equity again. Some people might leave the state, might leave the country, then it's a good idea. If you are reinvesting, might also work. Anyway, either way, 310-918-2260. I'd be glad to answer any real estate questions you might have. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.